So we are recording. And we will, as always, post that onto YouTube after time after the meeting. But anyways, it's going to be a green out. So I think, everybody should be wearing blue, because if we wear gold, it's going to look like Notre Dame because they're green and gold, I believe. However, she also told me that means that the team is going to be wearing their green jerseys. Why do we care? Because apparently there's something called the curse of the green, a curse of the green jersey. And they supposedly have only won like 2 games ever wearing the green jerseys. So to me, that is very good news. So hopefully that will prove to be the case and we come out of there with a nice victory. I would love to beat Notre Dame.
Join the meeting.
All right. So that's kind of the information I've had. Oh, and also, and this did not come from this person, but a friend of mine who is actually currently on the CAA board sent me a link to Manny's Deli on South Jefferson in Chicago. It's supposed to be absolutely fantastic deli. So we'll probably check that out. So with that, that's all the information I actually have on Notre Dame. So I know most people are staying in Chicago, few are staying in South Bend. So hopefully there's so we'll run into folks there. Other thing I wanted to kind of chat about a little bit is road watch parties. So I would like to go back to in-person road game watch parties this year. However, in order to do those, I need hosts. So if anybody would like to host one or more watch parties at Clubhouse 56, let me know. It's not a real tough gig or anything. It's just a matter of being there, greeting people, and getting people to sign in when they get there. So it's a pretty easy gig, and I'd appreciate some help. So if anybody would like to be a host, please let me know. Pardon me while I continue to let folks in here as they arrive. Let's see what else. Oh, before I get started on anything else and more on the road parties, I do want to introduce, we do have a couple of our board members here today. Patty, for the CAA board, it's myself, and also Jane Quinlan is here, who's just joined our board. So Jane, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, hi everybody, thank you. I've never been to a meeting like this before, so I thought I would just check it out, but really excited to be here and to see you all. Yeah, I graduated in 2015. I recently got involved with SAC Bears. I'm hoping to start working on planning some events, so hopefully you guys should be hearing about some fun things coming up. So looking forward to it. Thank you, Gary.
All right, thank you, Jane. And then also we have a couple folks that are on the SAC Bears Cal Fans Committee, and both past presidents, as am I, Patty Bonstetter and Leslie Mitchell are with us. So just wanted to introduce them, and they're helping out with making these meetings happen. Now,
and Peter Sawyer.
And where's Peter? Oh yeah, that's right, Peter Sawyer. Thank you. And also,
Henrik Holmes.
Okay, all right, Patty, we're just introducing the committee now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were doing past presidents.
So anyways, in terms of watch parties, the reason that I had that conversation with her name is Kristen from, Katie from Notre Dame alumni, is that they like to do their watch parties with the opposing team, and they've invited us to join their watch party, which I said, yeah, we'd love to do that because so many people are going to the game that I don't know how we'd have anybody to host the watch party. So that would be great. They're going to have it at, and I'll send out a notice at this, at a place called Pitch and Fiddle, which is where they have their watch parties at Watt and La Riviera. Probably people will also go to Clubhouse 56, but it'd be kind of nice that they say they always do enjoy meeting with the opposition and watching the game. They actually sound like a pretty friendly group. It is, though, just to let you know, it is a bar. And it is not really kid friendly, but usually don't have kids coming to those, so it shouldn't be an issue. Next thing just to announce before we continue on here, excuse me, is upcoming meetings. So we do have a couple more meetings planned. And these are going to be on Zoom. On October 26th, we will be meeting with Jim Knowlton, the athletic director. So our annual Jim's annual visit to the group here. So that'll be on Wednesday, October 26th over Zoom. And then also on Wednesday, November 9th, which is before the Oregon State game, Jim is before the Oregon game, we're going to have a great guest and possibly a couple of surprise guests along with him. They won't mention till we've been confirmed. Tyler Bridges. Tyler has a book coming out in November, and there's a slight chance that you might get the reference to this. The book is called 5 Laterals and a Trombone. Right. So you might know what that's all about. So yeah, and I've spoken or emailed back and forth with him quite a bit, and his book sounds really good. He's interviewed, I think what he said, over 375 people that were involved in some way with the game and with the play, and it looks really good. Now Tyler will be the second person ever to speak to this group who is actually a Stanford person. He went to Stanford, but he promised me that the book is very even keel written. So it looks very good. So that should be a lot of fun. Also, and I have to firm up.
Gary,
yes.
Who was do you remember who the first was? I can't seem to remember.
Gary Terrell. Yes, I think that he spoke during, I think it was Leslie Mitchell's administration.
That's right.
Yes. So so Gary was the first, and Tyler will be the second. And actually, when I reached out to see if he would be interested, he actually had said that I must have ESP, because he was actually about to email me, because he's been looking at different alumni associations he wants to speak. So so he will be here. And then also I just got it set up, so I think it's November 16th, which is the big game week. Will be Dave Lambros will be with us. So our annual visit from Dave. So that's the upcoming meetings. We are trying to get a couple of more booked right now. And I do have another one that we have not actually established a date yet. So I don't want to, because nothing is firm until you have a date set up. But I do have another guest that they'll be joining us that I think you'll be very excited about. It's going to be good. All right, so those are our upcoming meetings. I do not plan to have a meeting during the Notre Dame week because, again, I'm not going to be here. Everybody's leaving. Most people are leaving like on Wednesday or before. So I don't think there'd be very many people and nobody to run it. So that will be one of our off weeks. All right. That's all the announcements that I have. So with that, we are going to get all of the latest inside scoop from inside Cal Athletics from Tiffany Nakin. So I'd like to introduce Tiffany from Cal Athletics. Tiffany, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm filling in for my colleague, Adam Brooks. He's at another engagement now. So I wanted to take the opportunity to fill in for him. Just a little bit about me. I grew up in Stockton, so right down the way. Been to a lot of rowing regattas out in Sacramento. So I feel like Sacramento is my second home. I was a collegiate athlete. I was a rower out at Syracuse, lived and worked on the East Coast, specifically Boston and Syracuse area, and had the opportunity to come back to California and work for Cal. So loving every bit ever since I've been here since August of 2019. And I'm lucky to be a part of the leadership giving team with Adam Brooks. So I definitely took the opportunity to fill in for him at this meeting because I wanted to be able to present to you guys. And I felt like Sacramento is my second home. So awesome opportunity. So I'll give an update on the department and a few updates from the football program. A recent update, we finished the gender equity campaign, which is the upgrade and building of the softball and beach facilities programs. Last Tuesday, we held our annual Welcome Back barbecue, which is hosted by the Big C Society and the Cameron Institute. Always a memorable event because we have our student athletes and staff that take part of that event. It was upwards up to 930 student athletes. So you can only imagine how many staff members were there. I think we're closing in just over 210 staff members. So awesome event. We welcome back both our men's and women's basketball team from Europe. If you follow them on social media, you got to see some of the cool opportunities that they had. The men's program went to France, Germany, and I'm forgetting the last place they went, but the women had the opportunity to go to Spain and Croatia. Few updates from the football program that Adam shared with me. The program finished the year with a 3.0 cumulative GPA, the highest in history. The academic progress rate and graduation rate is at an all-time high within the program. Football has been working hard on and off the field, trying to stay healthy. Notable injuries, unfortunately, Brett Johnson will miss the 2000 season with the ACL tear. A few gentlemen to watch on the preseason watch list, Longhetto, Plummer, Cindric, Scott, and Ott. Some of the stadium enhancements that we have an open air suite in the south end zone, a party deck, an open air suite on the east rim, 2 private suites on the 7th level of the press box, a field club South Luge, 2 brand new scoreboards, which I have yet to see them, but possibly the best quality in the country. So excited to actually see that in person this weekend. And we have a new caterer, Levy. They also provide service for the Giants and Warriors. Last week, we held an event in our premium club, and I hear that the food was great. So excited to see what the food tastes like this coming up weekend. And lastly, for those of you who are going to Notre Dame, tickets were emailed this week. So you should see that in your inboxes. Again, thank you for having me and allowing me to share an update.
Thank you. Tiffany, we actually have a couple of questions in chat. Patty was wondering, do you know if the band is going to Notre Dame?
You know what? I haven't received an update on that. The last time I heard a couple weeks ago, they were trying to figure out the process with bringing the band. I can't confirm that. So that's a great question. I'll note that and see if I can get an answer back to you.
Okay, great. Thanks. And then Richard had the question in chat. When are the new suites available and what are the costs?
The new suites are available now. My colleague, Matt Honerkamp, will have details about cost. I'm happy to share his contact information with you. I don't necessarily have the pricing because my colleagues in premium seats deal with all those transactions, but happy to do a connection there.
Okay, great. Yeah, Richard, maybe you could send your email to Tiffany and she can get back to you with that. All right. Does anybody else have questions for Tiffany? You can either put them in chat or just go ahead and come off mute and ask your question.
Oh, I did have another question. I was curious. There's been a few times I've contacted my gold standard rep, and he's referred me to the Cal Athletic Fund. So I was just trying to figure out, when should I contact the athletic fund directly, and when should I contact the my gold standard rep?
Yeah, so the gold standard rep will typically deal with tickets. Our office, the Cal Athletic Fund office, we deal with any engagement opportunities with prospects and donors, and also we deal with any philanthropic transactions. So if you contact them and then they have a specific, if you contact your gold standard rep and you have a specific question, usually they'll be able to direct you to someone in our office. But if not, feel free to call our office at any time, and we're happy to assist you and direct you in the direct you to the correct person. So again, feel free to call our office and we'll help you for sure.
Okay. Oh, do you know what coaches will be at the caravan tomorrow in Lafayette?
Yes, so we'll have Coach Alacosta, who's the women's rowing head coach. We'll have Scott Franzen, he's the men's rowing coach. We will have Amanda Augusta, women's tennis coach. JT Okada, men's gymnastics coach, and Mark Fox, and Sharman.
Okay, good. I'll be there tomorrow.
Awesome. Look forward to seeing you.
Okay. Yeah, you may have been the one that helped me with that. That was one of the questions I asked my gold standard rep, and he referred me to the Cal Athletic Fund, and I guess they reopened it so I could and others could attend. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, definitely, we look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. It's going to be a great time.
Thank you.
Great. Other questions for Tiffany?
Yeah, what's going on with college football realignment?
What is going on with college football realignment? In respects to just generally with college football, or respects with Cal, or can you give me some more context?
Everything.
Everything. Well, the realignment is happening specifically to ensure that college athletic departments are in the best position when it comes to rivalries, when it comes to TV deals. And a lot of it's been, I would say, sped up a bit. I don't know if you remember when Texas and Oklahoma made that jump to the SEC. I think that kind of opened the floodgates for everybody to reconsider which conferences they're in. In respects to Cal, we're in the process with the regents. Recently put out a report discussing UCLA trying to switch over with conferences and what that kind of looks like for all UC schools in the system. I know Jim and Carol are working together and to figure out, where this puts us in the conversation. And candidly, we haven't gotten the information as to where they're at in the process. As development officers, we ask all the time because we want to know, we want to be prepared to give, our supporters answers. But, they keep it tight because, again, they don't want anything to leak, and they ultimately want to place us in the best position when it comes to being competitive and definitely keeping the student athlete in the forefront. So that's kind of what I had. That's kind of a short version of what's going on. But ultimately, I think, everybody's just trying to make sure they're competitive, and they want to be in the best position and be ahead of what we call the trends that are happening in the arms race. So
What's the impact of things like the Cal Legends program on the Cal Athletics Fund?
The Cal Legends program?
Yes.
The NIL program?
Yes.
So the department can't engage with the NIL program. So say, for instance, if somebody's interested in partaking in that program, I can't particularly work with them. How that impacts the department, we have to stay competitive. And so, the trend right now is NIL, and what that looks like for our department is, we've taken a step back and we know that it's there, but ultimately the department, we're here to help, secure support for our student athletes and coaches, and continue to make sure that we're providing a great experience for our supporters and fans. So we know it's there. We know our coaches need that NIL support to be competitive, but we also know that, we need to continue to make sure we secure support for the department as a whole.
All right, Tiffany, thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us, and you're certainly, of course, welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Hope you do, and you're also welcome to come back anytime. You don't need a special invitation, so we really appreciate you being here and for the update. So great, thanks so much.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody. And I'll put my email address and cell phone number in the chat. So any questions, I'm happy to follow up.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So now this weekend, as you all know, we are playing UC Davis, which is, it used to be that would be an easy game. I don't believe that's true anymore. They have a good team. They're well coached. And to hear a little bit more about it, I'd like to introduce the KDVS play-by-play announcer, Scott Marsh. Scott, you're on.
There we go. I'm going to unmute. Thanks for having me. Appreciate that. I am going to push back on it ever being an easy game. I don't know if I would characterize it that way or not. So I'm wondering how you guys have a David Shaw at Cal and how he's in your group. That surprises me, because last time I thought he was still head coach at Stanford. So that's a great recruit. David, it's good to see you over on the other side. But yeah, no, this game I think is going to be really competitive. And for those of you who were there in 2019, that was a very competitive game, 27-13. And as Davis fans, we're still very upset with the officiating crew on that terrible late hit call late in the third quarter that turned the tide of that game when we would have gotten the ball back with a chance to tie it. So, but moving into this year, we according to Coach Dan Hawkins, and you might recognize that name, he was at Boise State, Colorado, played you guys in the Pac-12 when he was with the Buffaloes. He's our head coach at UC Davis. And he has said this is the best team in school history and the best team he's had at Davis in his 6 years. So they're very optimistic about this year's Aggies team. We have a couple of Cal players on our team. McAllen Castles, who started for the Bears in 2019 against UC Davis, is now our starting tight end. And he's been a preseason All-American, and some people think he's going to be an NFL draft choice. So, and then on the defensive end, Evan Tattersall, who graduated at Cal, is now a graduate student at UC Davis on the linebacking crew. He's getting his MBA degree at Davis. So that'll be interesting to see how they perform on Saturday. But obviously, this is the marquee game on the UC Davis schedule this year. There would be no bigger win in school history than to upset the Bears, and we've beaten Stanford, but this would be bigger because of the UC rivalry and the nature of how these two schools formed. UC Davis was the school down the road from Cal for a long time in that ag school, and certainly now it's one of the great schools in the world along with Cal. So everybody's very fired up, and you'll see a lot of UC Davis fans there on Saturday. I'm telling you that right now.
So Scott, I know that, in years past, Davis, back when they were Division II, they were, if I remember correctly, played on a regular basis for the national championship in Division II. And so even though it was Division II at the time, saying that this is the best team in school history is actually saying quite a bit.
It means a lot. It does, because Davis has been playing football over 100 years. So, and Coach Hawkins, he knows Pac-12 caliber football. For him to make that statement's big.
Yeah, and I know Dan Hawkins. He's a very well thought of coach. He's a good coach. So, what are some of the we'll certainly watch our former Cal players, but who are some of the other key players to watch on the Aggies?
Well, our running back, Alonzo Gilliam, is 165 yards from breaking the all-time rushing record at UC Davis. He returns for his 5th year. He was in the transfer portal in the offseason, elected to come back, had some other offers. And as you guys were touching on the issue with NIL, he got offered some other NIL money to go to other schools, but ultimately decided to stay at UC Davis because he wanted to finish off the legacy of being the best all-time running back in school history. So you saw him in 2019. He had a good game against the Bears, and you'll see a lot of him on Saturday. He is definitely the featured back. As I mentioned, McAllen Castles is one of the featured targets on offense. And our quarterback, Miles Hastings, is returning from last year's team that made the NC2A playoffs.
What do you see as some of the key matchups on Saturday?
Well, you need to tell me about the Bears because I probably know as much about them as you do. I mean, you've got a lot of new players on your team. Obviously, you bring back the key running back with, Damian Moore. So you're going to see a lot of him against the Aggies. And there's no doubt, because I've spoken to Justin Wilcox already. I've done my coach's show with him. And, you're going to see a lot of run game against UC Davis and try to take advantage of the size of the Bears versus the Aggies, which is noticeable. But in terms of your wideouts, your quarterback, how is Jack Plummer going to be? Your guess is as good as mine. He transferred from Purdue, but week one, lots of things to be figured out still. You guys, have a lot of talent, but a lot of inexperience. So I don't know how to mark that in a week one.
We have one question in chat from David. What do you know what the UC Davis payout is?
Well, I know it's more than $100,000, which is in the chat. It's closer to $500,000, and I wouldn't want to be quoted on it. It's all public record, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 to $600,000.
Okay, and I see another question in chat from Gary Bradis, who I've known for a billion years.
Yep.
In 2019, Cal had 4 turnovers, and Davis had Jack Meyer, who's now in the CFL at quarterback. What makes you think this will be competitive?
Yep, Jake Mayer, who is starting for the Calgary Stampede. Well, I'll just refer you to Bleacher Report. Bleacher Report, if you guys follow it, predicts every college football game, going on the weekend. And I hate to say this, but the Bleacher Report guy is picking UC Davis to beat Cal this weekend, 27-24. So it's one guy's opinion, but it's also a national opinion. So I think this game's going to be very competitive. UC Davis has a lot of players returning, and again, this is the game for Davis. This is the opportunity to pull off a big time upset. So Cal better be ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'd like to throw it open to everybody in the meeting. So who has questions for Scott?
We'll refer to the chat room, David. UC Davis is not a cow now. It's still officially the Mustang. This gun rack is the official mascot. There was a vote by students to make the cow the official mascot, but it has to be approved by the administration, which it hasn't been yet. So, and the nickname's the Aggies.
Well, I had a question.
It's UC Davis. It's not Cal Davis. A lot of people want to say Cal Davis. It is UC Davis, not Cal Davis.
So if Davis say wins, will they put in their bid to join the Pac-12?
Well, there's a lot of people at UC Davis who wants Davis to move into the Pac-12 or whatever that's going to be. That seems really unrealistic to me because the financial commitments, UC Davis just doesn't have the money to move up to that level. And I think the challenge is you look at markets with San Francisco, with Cal and Stanford, where they want to pick up a closer market in Sacramento. It's a top 20 TV market, so it's definitely attractive from major conferences. And, I'm surprised, honestly, that UC Davis hasn't moved into the Mountain West at this point because they're certainly, from a school standpoint, on caliber with Boise State, Fresno State, all those schools that are in that conference. But again, it's a financial situation. There's lots of considerations that go into that, as you know.
Okay, and I'm originally from Eureka, and I remember there used to be a big rivalry in the far western conference between Humboldt and UC Davis, and Sac State was in there as well. Then that's when everyone went separate ways.
Yeah, none of those schools play football now. Humboldt doesn't play football, Chico doesn't play football, San Francisco State doesn't play football. They've all disbanded programs. Obviously, Sac State still does, and Sac State's in the Big West Conference with us, which is considered the best FCS subdivision conference in the country. It includes Montana State, perennial, national championship caliber teams. So, Question about what does the UC Davis band look like? Well, now it's under regulation from the administration. They were put on hiatus for a while as a student-run organization. There were some issues. So, but the band is back up and it's now officially the UC Davis Marching Band. It used to be called the Cal Aggie Marching Band. So, is Davis pushing the host Cal another Power 12, Power 5 games at home? No, it's not realistic because I mean the stadium at Davis only seats about 12,000. So there's never a Power 5 team that's going to come to Davis to play a game there. The stadium's 10 years old. It's brand new. It's great stadium and it's a great place to watch a game, all state of the art. It's just not big enough. They would have to add on. It could be added on to seat 30,000, but there's not the need for that right now. And certainly the financial ability to do that would be very difficult.
Right, Scott,
Regarding the mascot or the name or whatever,
Yep.
I do remember when the junior university on the peninsula, the students voted for it to be the Robber Barons, and their regents or whoever it is that made those decisions decided that wasn't going to work. So,
Yep.
so they are the cardinal or something. But
Yeah. And
Robert
personally, I think I'd be happy with a cow. I think that'd be a great mascot for UC Davis because there's cows that are on campus right now. So I think it'd be fun. I don't know if the administration's going to do it. So
I thought it was the bicycle because you have more bicycles than anything else on your campus.
that's true. Yeah, it's never been the bicycle that I'm aware of. So.
Right. All right. Well, Scott, thank you. You know, we do. I have one more question for you, and I
Yeah.
know this is your first time being here with us, and we hope it's certainly not your last. Hope next time Davis plays, you'll join us again. But we do have a traditional final question that we ask.
Sure. Let's hear it.
And you have to answer it. You can't
Yep.
lose out of it. All right. What is your final score prediction?
Well, you know, I can't come on to your Sac Bears group and pick Cal to beat UC Davis. That would be ridiculous. So I'm going to go with the Aggies in this one. And I'm going to say 27-17 UC Davis by 10 points in the upset on Saturday.
Okay. Well, I think we've got about 45 people here that disagree with you, but that's yeah.
Well, that's why we're doing it on remote. Nobody can reach me. So I'm safe. I don't have to worry
So
about
he's saying
that.
our offense still sucks.
And,
I don't know what to make of your offense. You tell me, is Jack Plummer going to come out and play well? I mean, they're really high on him in camp. And I just got off the phone with Joe Starkey, who, by the way, Joe Starkey's son, I broadcasted with at UC Davis. We were both students at Davis. So Joe's got a lot of ties to UC Davis, and certainly excited to see him on Saturday, finishing up his great career calling Cal football. But he also thinks it's going to be a very, very competitive game. So,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Scott, you know, speaking of Joe, I mean, as you mentioned, this is Joe's last year. Now, I have not had the pleasure of listening to you call a UC Davis game, but, you know, we are going to have an opening next year. So, you know, something to consider.
well, I tell you, there will be a lot of people interested in that job. So we'll see where that goes. But I appreciate that. And, you know, again, anybody who gets the Joe from Joe Starkey is filling the deepest shoes possible, right? He is the Golden Bears, and the fact that it's the 40 years in the big game, that's pretty darn exciting too. And you guys got a great schedule. I'm so excited that you get a chance to go to Notre Dame. I'm so happy for Joe to get to do that from Chicago. And I mean, you still have SC and UCLA on the schedule, and the big games at home. And like you've got a great schedule this year.
We're excited.
It should be. You should be. Hopefully the team will live up to it. And I will tell you this also. Justin Wilcox, he coached on Dan Hawkins' staff at Boise State. So they are very close. And I can tell you that Justin Wilcox is a class individual, and you're very lucky to have him there. Dan Hawkins thinks extremely highly of him, and Coach Wilcox does of Dan. There's a real tight relationship between both of them there.
Scott, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. Everybody give him a big hand. You can reaction or, you know, or show it. We really appreciate you being here and your insights. And and hopefully have a good injury-free game on Saturday with I have to say, a Bear victory.
I understand, of course, and hopefully I'll see some of you guys on Saturday at the game.
Well, a lot of us will be there.
Well, I tell you what, one of my good friends is John Frisch, and I know he'll be down partying, and you guys probably know him. I don't know of a bigger booster than him, and he'll have his RV and all of that. And I'm looking forward to going by and saying hi to him. So,
All right. Well, again, Scott, thanks so much for being with us.
take care, guys.
And you're welcome to stick around. All right. So with that, let's get into the headliner here. It would not be an opening meeting if our guest was not Bear Insider's Jim McGill. So, and you all know him. I don't need to introduce him. Jim, take it away. Give us a whole bunch of great information.
I'm not able to see my video on my end. Are you seeing me?
No, but we can hear you.
Well, I guess that's fine then.
Yeah.
So I had the chance to go to a lot of practice. I was out of the country the first 2 practices of spring ball, but I made the final 13 practices of spring ball, and then every single one of fall. So I've been to 29 straight practices. I'm really impressed with this team, and it starts with the new quarterback, Plummer. I know some people were downplaying how good he is because he lost his starting role at Purdue, but he lost his starting role to a guy who's probably going to be a first-round draft pick who was just marginally better than him. He had 7 touchdowns and no interceptions, and around 150 quarterback rating when he lost his job, and that's good numbers for most starting quarterbacks in the country. So it's no shame that he ended up being a backup for 2/3 of the season. He's been great from the very beginning. I've been super impressed because when you get a new quarterback to a system like Bill Musgrave's, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to pick up right away. And you add to that, you've got a receiving core of young, really fast receivers, and timing can often be an issue. And the timing was virtually impeccable from the beginning of camp. I asked Jack about that, and he said that they worked together off season and they're in the film room a lot too. But to me, regardless of how much time you put in prior to spring ball as a new arrival with young receivers, you're not going to get there with the timing unless you're a veteran quarterback who's really got a lot going for you. So I think everything starts with him. There's going to be a lot of new faces in the offensive side of the ball in particular this year. Jeremiah Hunter is the only returning occasional starter in the receiving unit, but he's the leader of that bunch. And there's 2 more additional starters. J. Michael Sturdivant, who is a receiver from Texas who had around 50 offers, including some of the biggest programs in the country. And he ran a 10-3-100, winning the state championship in Texas. So he can fly, and he's tall too. He's 6'3", 200. And then you've got Maven Anderson in the slot, and he's another super fast guy. He's a 10-700 guy, so faster than most guys on the field at any given day too. And he's a guy that runs great routes. He's a real mismatch problem for a lot of defenses because he runs such great routes with such speed and precision that he's just a tough cover. And I really like some of the backup guys they have there too, particularly Tommy Christakos, who's a 6'4" receiver with a crazy big catch radius, and he holds on to everything too. And Mason Starling, a JC transfer who came in this spring, didn't play too much because he was injured, but the first 2 weeks of fall camp before he got dinged up, he was potentially even the best receiver out there on the field. So they've got some really nice depth. Another 6'4" guy with great catch radius and good speed too. So a lot of targets there. The tight ends are going to be new too. Jermaine Terry is the starter. He's a guy who had an offer from Alabama and Notre Dame and all over the country, but he opted to stay home. He was coming off a pretty serious injury his freshman year, so he was not in great shape. He just saw 1 ball come his way. Last year, he was mainly special teams, but he got healthy in the off season and he leaned up, lost 20 pounds, and he's got the prototype NFL body out there. And with the lighter weight, he showed that he has a good pass catching ability down the field, whereas he didn't show that so much last year when he was at a heavier weight. And then Sacramento product Kaleki Latu, he's a guy the staff calls a freak because he's 6'6". He was light at 205 or 210 last year. He's 230 now. And he's a guy that can really move, has good hands, great catch radius too. So he presents a tough cover for linebackers out there. So a lot of new guys there. A new face at running back, splitting time with Damian Moore is Jaden Ott, super fast running back from Las Vegas by way of Norco. He played both high schools. He has family in both areas. He's a guy that's going to inject some speed into the backfield that we haven't seen in a number of years. He may not get as many carries as Damian will, but he'll see a lot. And an interesting thing about Damian is he is another guy the strength and conditioning staff challenged to drop some weight and get in better shape. He was carrying some baby fat before. He's super lean now, and it's showing on the field. He's got a real shiftiness and ability to spot tiny creases and pick up big gains consistently. So it's exciting to see that. And DeCarlos Brooks is a nice backup for both of them. He averaged 8 yards a carry when he got off the injured list last year. And another couple of guys that are interesting in the backfield that'll see some time on occasion. Ashton Stredick is a preferred walk-on from Texas, ran for over 3,000 yards his senior year, and he's one of the fastest guys on the team too. So they're going to try and get him the ball in space on occasion, whether it's throwing it to him or end arounds or some other ways to get him in space where he has room to build up to full speed quickly. And then Ashton Hayes is another freshman from Reno, and he is super quick too. He's a blur out there. I mean, I think he's even faster than Stredick and Jaden Ott, who's going to be splitting time with Damian. So a lot of good weapons there. They're utilizing them in a number of different ways, and they're throwing out of the backfield quite a bit. And one of the things I like about Plummer so much is when Chase threw into the flat, a lot of times it was a bailout. He didn't look off the defense, and the play was stopped for no gain or a loss frequently. And Plummer's really good at looking off the defense and then quickly hitting these guys on the outlet pass in stride. So they're going forward when they get the ball and they're picking up yards instead of getting blasted as soon as they catch the ball. So that's exciting. Offensive line turnover there. Ben Coleman and Matt Cindric are the veterans that have come back. Ben switched to left tackle to replace Granite Bay product Will Craig, who had an injury retirement. Ben's a rock out there. He's a future NFL guy, whether it's at tackle or offensive guard. And Matt Cindric is back at center. He's an all-league guy. He's an anchor of the line. Then you have 3 new starters in there right now. You've got a transfer from Arizona State, Spencer Lavelle, who is a 5th-year player. He's a mountain of a man. He's 6'7", 335. He's playing right guard. Brian Driscoll's seen a lot of playing time. He's playing left guard. He's a real strong player that Angus McClure calls the anvil for his ability to hit. And then at right tackle, Braden Rome held off TJ Session, who was a transfer from North Dakota, I believe, who they played in the FCS championship game last year. So Braden is a guy that has had injury issues lately, and he came back to the spring healthy, and in the fall even more so, put on some good weight. So he held off TJ, but TJ's a good backup. And then you've got a nice freshman who's the strongest guy on the team. The day he walked in from Reno, Sioape Vadakani. He was teammates with Angus McClure's son in Reno. He's adding some really nice depth to the offensive line. And then Bastian Swinney, a really talented former offensive tackle from Minnesota, who's playing at either guard position right now. So they've got a real solid front 8. I think that gives you a pretty good overview of the offense. The defense, obviously, there's a big change with Brett Johnson, unfortunately, going down with a torn ACL last week. He was out all last season, and they missed him a lot, and they were really hoping to get a nice injection of talent there on the line, because he's a guy that's so strong. He takes up 2 blockers quite often. Without him there, it's going to be Ethan Saunders, who was one of their best defensive ends last year, starting at one end. And then Jaden Roberts will be at the other end. He saw a lot of reserve time, both inside and outside. And then up the middle, you've got a Central Valley product, Ricky Correa. Ricky's a guy who is a really big man. He played last year at 6'4", 355. And if you think about 355, you don't think about a guy who's quick on his feet, but he was a sideline to sideline guy at 355. The strength and conditioning staff challenged him to lean up, and he's a much leaner guy now. He's at 335, a lot quicker. He's a real load up the middle. So those are the primary guys on the defensive line. Achille Calhoun is a highly recruited redshirt freshman who is going to be a key backup on that defensive line too. And the interesting thing is they play a lot of nickel defense. So a lot of times you're only going to see two true defensive linemen out there. So being a little bit thinner on the defensive line is a little bit less of a liability in a situation like that. But they also have the ability to mitigate it with several outside linebackers that are former defensive ends, like Utah transfer Xavier Carlton, 6'7", 275. He's good in coverage, but he also is good at lining up on the edge and putting pressure on the defense. Odo Isabor is a guy who started out at outside linebacker at UCLA, and they gradually needed him at nose tackle, or defensive tackle. So they beefed him up and had him play inside, but he's better outside. He's 6'3", 260, really quick, solid on the rush. He's going to start at outside linebacker, but he's going to line up on the edge a lot too and give them a pass rush. So a lot of different variety of ways to get a rush either through the defensive line or the defensive ends. And up the middle is where you're going to see, I think, a lot of their tackles, the middle linebackers. Jackson Sermon transferred in from the University of Washington. He is someone who is the second leading returning tackler in the league, very productive middle linebacker. And he's teaming with another Sacramento product. Femi Oladejo is from it's not Capital Christian. You guys will probably know, but one of the Sacramento area schools. He came in and surprised right away as a freshman, making an impact as soon as he got a chance to see the field. He's going to be starting as well. And they have some really nice depth at middle linebacker. The primary backups are going to be Nate Ricina, another guy who surprised. He gray shirted, which means that he took his first semester essentially off with just limited classes and building up strength and adding weight. And then when he got his shot last year, he played in only 6 or 7 games, but he had 3 interceptions. So he was tied for second in the league in interceptions as a linebacker in just a half a schedule. So that was super impressive. And then he's playing opposite Blake Enceladus. Enceladus is a guy that a lot of people loved in high school, high energy guy that reminded people of Jarrett Willard, if you remember him back from the early 90s, just a guy who's really aggressive sideline to sidelines guy. It's nice to see him healthy finally. So he played his way into the backup role, and he's going to be in the rotation. He actually was slated to start last year before the season, but he tore his ACL, and then they ended up filling in with Tattersall, and eventually they made a move to ISF and some of the other guys that filled in there. But that's a strong 2 deep there. Also on the outside, I touched on some of those guys, but Braxton Croto's one of the biggest veterans on the defensive side of the ball. He's slated to start outside too, and he lost about 10 to 15 pounds himself, and he's quicker out there, more versatile. So I think that'll help him in coverage and on the rush. He was just a little bit big and slower last year than he probably should have been. Then Oren Patu's another guy who is a pass rush specialist. You'll see him a lot on third down situations, as well as Miles Williams. There's 2 Miles Williams. There's a linebacker and a safety. They call the linebacker BMW for Big Miles Williams. He was really impressive in the spring, provided a really strong pass rush, and he's a guy that you'll be hearing a lot from in future years. He's a redshirt freshman. And then stretching to the defensive backfield, I think that starts with the safeties. They're super deep and very talented. Daniel Scott is a returning 6th-year veteran, returning starter. He was second in the league in interceptions, along with Ricina with 3. I think everybody remembers his pick six at TCU that could have been a game winner if the defense didn't falter late in the game. He's a first team preseason all Pac-12 player, and he's going to be joined in the starting lineup by Craig Woodson. He's a guy that was slated to start last year, super athletic, big hitting guy. And at 6 feet, he was able to high jump 6'5" in high school. So that kind of tells you the explosive ability that he has. And he's got really good ball skills too, and he's playing really confidently. On the cornerbacks, you've got Lumaja Hearns, another one of those young guys that surprised last year. Chiggy was a guy that everybody thought would be good, but he faltered early in the season. So they threw Lumaja in there because he was having some good practices. Even though it's 5'10", 155 at high school size, he still managed to get honorable mention all Pac-12 last year because of his outstanding play. He's added 15 pounds of muscle, so that's helped him a lot in press coverage, and he's playing really confidently against Cal's talented receiving squad. And then opposite him, you've got Isaiah Young starting at the other corner. He's a guy with really good ball skills that made a jump late last season, and he had a good spring and fall. So they're expecting a lot out of him. And then the nickel spot, you've got Colin Gamble, who is someone that probably would start at opposite Hearns at corner if they didn't play nickel so much. But he's been a very talented ball hawking guy at the nickel position. So even though the defensive backfield outside of Scott is young, they're very talented, and you're going to see that group play together for a lot of years to come. So it'll be exciting to see the growth in that unit. Then covering special teams, Dario Longhetto had a rough year in 2020 in the shortened season. He came back and had a pretty solid year last year with 75% of his field goals converted and 100% on PATs. He has continued to get better and better in spring and fall. He doesn't miss many field goals, and his strength and his range has increased a lot. He had a low trajectory in 2020. It got better in 21. Now it's really good. He's getting a lot of loft on all of his kicks, and he actually kicked a 55-yarder in the scrimmage the other week. It cleared the crossbar by 5 yards. He did say last year that he had 60-yard strength, so he showed it on that kick, and he's been accurate and consistent. And behind him, you've got an interesting guy. Michael Luckhurst is a preferred walk-on who will probably get a scholarship down the road. He's the son of Mick Luckhurst, former Cal kicker, and he's got a massive leg too. His balls go over the top of the uprights. You don't see that kind of loft very often. I think he's still working a little bit on his consistency. He's not quite as consistent as Longhetto is, but he's going to provide some good depth there. And if they don't worry about his redshirt season, maybe they'd want to have him on kickoffs and save Dario for just PATs and field goals. But that remains to be seen. Longhetto's going to start doing both the first game, but they can change up on that at some point. And one interesting twist with the special teams, I like how they've handled it. Charlie Ragel's not back as defensive special teams coordinator. There is no specific coordinator at this point. So what they've done is they divided up the duties amongst around 8 coaches or so. Michael Barton, former Cal linebacker, has a role as a QC guy, but Angus McClure does the PAT and field goal kicking coaching. And a lot of the other coaches have broken down various elements of the kick return, punt return, kick coverage, punt coverage units into very specialized groupings. So I think you're going to see a lot more technical emphasis this year, and they've got a lot of speedy, higher caliber guys on coverage units. So that's going to help too. I think that's going to pay dividends this year. And then the long snapper, Slater Zellers, he struggled in part of 2020 and early 2021 before he got it back together again. And he's just, I talked to Jameson Sheehan, the punter, and he said his accuracy is pinpoint. He virtually every time he snaps the ball right where Sheehan's hands are, with the laces facing out away from the kicker, where he doesn't even have to spin it most of the time. So they're a well-drilled unit there. And Sheehan's returning at punter. He's got another Aussie backing him up who has got a big leg too. So they're building a little bit of depth there too. So I think that pretty much covers all the units, and happy to take any questions you guys have.
Yeah, thanks, Jess. Good report. Great. We do have a few questions in chat. Dave was asking, 'cause I know that this bit us for the Arizona game last year. If a player gets COVID, what is the testing and self-quarantining policy currently?
I haven't heard if Cal has differed from the CDC's recommendations. I have a son at Cal right now, and I haven't heard about any quarantine procedure that's different from the CDC guidelines. They've loosened up significantly. I don't expect it to be a factor with this team, honestly.
Great. And then Gary is asking, Iosefa was not on the depth chart. Do you know his status?
Well, there were some academic issues with him that held him out early in camp. I did see him there later in camp, but my guess is that that's probably still the reason why he's not on the depth chart, probably not enough time in practice. But they're really deep up the middle too. It's not like he's got a bunch of scrubs in front of him. He's got some really good players in front of him.
And Steve is asking, if Plummer should get injured, how confident are you that backup Kyle Milner can be an adequate replacement?
If you would have asked me in the spring, I probably would have been a little more bullish, but I think Kai has tailed off some. And I don't know if that's because early on I saw him rotating in with the first unit more and he was more impressive with them. But up until recently, he's been uneven, too many interceptions, just didn't seem composed enough to adequately take over. But whenever he's got the chance with the ones, it seems like his play goes up a lot. I think part of that is probably related to the line. The line has a few backups who are solid rotational guys, but as a unit, as a 5-man unit, the second and third team lines, they're a big drop off from the first team. So it could be that he just doesn't have the time to operate, but I'm not super comfortable with him there. One interesting sidelight with quarterback position is they brought in a quarterback who was pretty unheralded, a 2-star guy from Miami that was going to play at Yale, who has been a revelation in camp. Big arm, composed. His name's Fernando Mendoza. He's a guy that moved up and took third team reps ahead of Zach Johnson, even though Zach is third on the depth chart, the official one. I don't know that that's actually the case. He's going to be a guy that's going to be pushing Kai. He's in the film room constantly. He knows the game and he's got all the tools. So that's a guy to keep an eye on too.
All right, some more chat questions. Will Cal continue doing rugby style punts? Rick wants to know.
I think so. I don't think it's going to be a constant, but I think there are situations where they're going to utilize Sheehan's natural rugby kicking ability. It might take a little bit off the distance and the loft on his kicks, but I imagine that most of the time that he'll be doing that outside of eluding a pass rush will be situational things where maybe it's a shorter field where they don't need that deep kick, where they need to pin somebody in the corner or something, but it plays to his strengths.
And let's see, Rob wants to know, do the players talk or really care about all of the realignment stuff? Interesting question.
You know, if they do, they don't really let on with the media. I don't know that they have the time to get into it too much. And it takes a ton of focus to be a high level D1 guy. So I just don't think they have the bandwidth to get into that too much.
And then Richard's asking, what do you think is the best outcome for Cal in conference realignment? What do you think is the most likely outcome? I hope we do not end up playing most of our games away from the West Coast.
Well, I look at it in two ways. I think it either has to be a West Coast pod with the Big Ten, where there's 6 teams on the West Coast. That would mean that you'd have your 3 non-conference games and you would have your 9 conference games. 4 or 5 of them would be at home, and half of them would be on the West Coast. So it's not like you'd be on the road all the time. You'd be at home for a lot of West Coast games and probably play the traditional Big Ten teams back their way 2 times a game or so. So I don't think travel is going to impact football a whole lot if they go that direction. But I think joining the Big Ten with a 6-team West Coast pod is the best outcome for them. It might get them 60, 70, 80 million dollars or more, depending on what they negotiated with the extra teams. The next best outcome would be, in my mind, staying with the original Pac 12 teams that are remaining in a Pac 10, or adding 2 teams like San Diego and UNLV for their media markets. And in that case, it only is viable if you keep Oregon and Washington in the conference, and if you have a TV contract that's somewhere in the $50 million range with ESPN and Apple or one of the other streaming services. If you're going to try and stick in that alignment and get something in the 30s or the 20s, I just don't think that's viable. I don't think they're going to be able to compete on the level that they need to. I am optimistic, though, that if it goes that direction, that ESPN is going to pay a lot more than the numbers that are being bandied about recently, because they need that late slot West Coast market to compete with NBC and Fox and in their existing contracts now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, after some gamesmanship early where they indicate they're not going to pay a lot, them paying a lot more than the current Pac-12 programs have been seeing in this recent contract, which is in the 20s.
And then Rick was asking, what are the coaches doing to build quarterback depth?
Well, they are rotating in those 4 guys that I mentioned, a reasonable amount, and then they brought in another transfer from Louisville, Tyler Jensen, who's a big armed guy, but he needs to work on learning the system and getting integrated. It's not an easy learn. I don't think the depth is super viable right now until I see more consistency out of Milner. I haven't been able to see him since fall camp ended for the last week and a half, but you do want to see more consistency out of him. And like I said, I do like how Mendoza has come along really quickly. He wasn't there for the spring. He was just a fall arrival. So what he's been able to accomplish that early is really impressive. Zach Johnson is just a guy who knows the offense. And ideally, you wouldn't have him in there anything more than mop-up opportunity, but he's at least a guy that knows the system. And he probably would have been the guy playing at Arizona last year if it weren't for COVID, but he was knocked out too.
Then Dave wants to know, what is the rule or commitment date for the transfer portal? A player can't transfer once the season starts. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can't actually join another team once the season starts. You can cease your eligibility with your current team and make a commitment to another one, but you can't play with them.
Yeah, and Dave would like to know, how deep is the O-line depth? Sounds like we could have problems if injuries come up.
Well, I think it's 3 deep right now, potentially 4 deep on the backups that are viable. Yeah, I mean, depth on offensive line is always an issue with any team, I think. But I don't know many Cal teams that had 8 or 9 viable rotational players like they have right now. So whereas I'd like to see a little bit more, maybe pushing 10. I think that between the guys that I mentioned, TJ Session and Siwape Vadakani and Bastian Swenny and Everett Johnson, those 4 guys took a lot of some of them that were here in the spring took a lot of reps with the ones. Johnson and Swenny almost the whole spring and did well, made a big step up. And then Vadakani stepping in really quickly with his strength. By the way, I said he's the strongest guy on the team. He benches 445 and he squats over 600. So super strong guy and very agile too. Between those 4 guys as backups, I think that they're pretty well covered in terms of rotational depth. You'd like to see more outside of that, but some of the young guys will eventually be a part of that, like Jackson Brown, who's a talented kid from San Ramon Valley that's a true freshman. He's coming along nicely, not ready quite yet. And also Trent Ramsey, a 4-star guy from Florida who's injured right now. He's a guy that's going to be a rotational guy down the road too. So they're building it. I think that they're in better shape on the line right now than they've been in quite a few years. So that's something to be take a little bit more comfort than we've been able to take on the line in recent years.
All right, take a couple more questions out of chat here. Edwin is wondering, this year, will the university or will the city of Berkeley Health Department be deciding policy and how to manage COVID exposed athletes?
I just don't think COVID is really a factor anymore. I mean, you all have probably seen the CDC's announcement. You don't have to quarantine. You know, I don't think that they're going to create the chaos that they created last year and the year before. I don't think they have the power to.
And Richard was wondering, should we be expecting more night games?
Well, it's a good start so far. I mean, 2 back-to-back 1 p.m. games. I think that's a good sign. I think if the program stays in the reformulated Pac-12, eventually, I think there's going to be a lot more later games than there have been lately, because that later slot is the most valuable slot for ESPN. But, you know, I don't know if it's alums that complained that the athletic department heard and made their voice heard with the conference or what, but last year there were less night games than there had been in recent years. And with the way that we're opening the first 2 at 1 p.m., it's been a lot better in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And then Edmund is asking, what do you predict Cal's record is going to be this year?
I am going with 8-4 regular season. Wouldn't be surprised to see 9 wins between regular season or a bowl game. So if you cover a bowl game, 9 wins overall.
So, and I'm going to throw my question in here when I get to Dave's question. Since we're speaking about predictions, who do you predict will replace Joe Starkey?
Yeah, I have zero clue, honestly. I mean, everybody would like to see Roxy come back and do it, but I think he probably makes too much money to do that. Unless there was a way to work around it, but I don't see how he could. Otherwise, I haven't heard any names bandied about at all. I think Mike Pulaski thinks it's going to be a decision made after the season. So I don't think we're going to hear a name real soon. I mean, when I say after the season, not like December, like next year.
Mm.
And I do a regular podcast with Mike. If you're on Bear Insider, we just filmed our offensive preview the other day, and it's going up soon. We have the regular audio podcast up now, and the defensive one we just recorded today, and that transcript is going up probably tomorrow morning, and then the video tomorrow afternoon or evening. So yeah, Mike's great to have back. It's great to have a former player, a passionate Cal guy in the booth. And as much as we've all appreciated Joe over the years, I think it'll be fun to have a little bit of new blood too. I mean, you can look at it either way, but we'll miss Joe for sure.
And then Dave Taylor's asking, will Christakis play a lot at wide receiver?
Yeah, for sure. He's the guy that seems to hold on to everything. And he's not just a red zone guy. He's a guy that runs great routes no matter what they have him doing, with a really big catch radius. So they have a lot of confidence in his ability to make the tough catches in traffic. And he's a real tough cover for DBs. He's so much taller, so much longer arms, that he presents a real tough cover for most any defense that's trying to stick with him. So yeah, I think he'll see a lot of time out there this year. I think one of the things that held him back before was his health, and he was healthy all through spring and fall. So that's a good sign.
And one more question, Richard. So I guess turnabout is fair play since we asked Scott. What's your prediction for the game this weekend?
I was thinking about that a little bit earlier. I'll go with 31-13.
Please say Cal. Thank you. Okay, good.
Of course.
Good. Right. Mm. All right. Anybody else have any final questions for Jim before we wrap it up? All right, Jim, always a pleasure. It's always a great report. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. And I think it was last year I ran into you on Solano Avenue. I hope to catch up with you again this year.
Yeah, I was thinking I might be able to bump into one of you guys last weekend. I feel like a Sacramento guy. I went to a River Cats game and to the famous ice cream place at Gunther's.
Ah, okay.
I felt like a Sacramento native.
Yeah, Gunther's is great, but you also should try Vic's.
Haven't tried Vic's.
Yeah, got to try Vic's. Absolutely.
All right. I'll make a note.
So, and I'm saying you were at a Riverside, you were in the neighborhood and you didn't call. I don't know what to say. But yeah, listen, again, Jim, seriously, thank you so much. Always great to have you here. And so to see you on campus.
Yeah, hopefully so. Looking
Right.
for a good year.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Be watching your email for information on our next meeting. We're still working on speakers, so we hope to have some. We've got some a few lined up for later in the season, but we hope to have some coming up here in the earlier part. For the YouTube link to this recording, we don't have it yet. We have to get the recording moved over and uploaded and everything. So we will put the YouTube link in one of the emails, Ellen. So we will have that for you. And if I forget to do it, please feel free to shoot me an email and I'll send it to you. But it'll probably be up in a few days. Steve Scott is always kind enough to take care of that for us, and he does it in pretty short order. So thank you, Steve. And also wasn't here when we started, but Steve is also on our committee, on our steering committee here. And I think Michael is still here. Michael Campos has just joined the Sac Bears board. So welcome to Michael. And thank you. And listen, everybody, thanks for being here. We had a great turnout tonight. I hope everybody got some good information, and see you at Memorial Stadium on Saturday, I hope. So with that, let's give a good go Bears, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
This leave.
How you doing, Les? Yeah, you're muted.
Now I'm okay.
Good. Yeah. Now I can hear you.
Oh, Jim McGill is just
Isn't he great? Yeah, always good.
You know, his prediction of 8-4. It was kind of like his last year's prediction, but